Marcus, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's an author and, of course, a researcher of intelligent action thrillers, none other than Mr. Guy Morris.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Guy. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Well, I'm retired now, but I came out of a 40-year Fortune 500 career, mainly working with international oil and gas, as well as high-tech companies such as Burroughs and IBM, and software companies such as Oracle and Microsoft. And so I've been involved in consulting. I've been involved in major projects for the government and major enterprises. I've been leading innovation for my entire career. And now that I retired, I get to be an author where I still get to enjoy all of the research and the intellectual stimulation, but I get to do it with a lot more fun.
Indeed, Mr. Guy Morris. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. And today, let's talk about your writing process in general.
My
You're
writing
out.
process,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. My writing process is fairly complex. I don't believe in there's two theories in writing. There's what they call pantsers and plotters. A pantser is somebody who writes by the seat of their pants. They just sit down and they just start writing whatever comes to their head. I'm absolutely a plotter because the my books involve real world themes, intellectual themes. I have three goals in my books. One is to hopefully reveal something to you, to do enough research that you, as the reader, can will get to learn something really cool that maybe you didn't know, and maybe that has to do with ancient artifacts or ancient legends or high tech uses of sophisticated software in the government. Something that most people don't know. I want you to learn something new. Second big goal is I want you to have a reading experience that's so much fun, so engaging, so well done that you have a really hard time putting the book down. But three, and this is probably the most important, that I've during that process, I've raised so many real world issues. It's so provocative in the things that it has to say that you can't help thinking about the book for weeks after you do put it down. And so, in order to get that kind of experience, that takes planning. So, I usually start my books, each book starts with at least a year of no plots, nothing else, just researching into the main themes that I want to cover. And those might be themes that deal with technology or global governance or geoeconomics or climate change or, in the latest book, The Image, we dealt with CERN experiments to create a mini black hole in order to prove fifth dimensions. And so that opened up themes of quantum properties of consciousness in humans and machines and Chinese experiments for quantum teleportation. It just opened up so many rich buckets of information. And then from those themes, I have to then develop my characters. Each character has to go through a story arc. They have to be changed by the experience of the book. And so each character will oftentimes get to own one of those themes that we're going to be talking about. So we'll learn about the pros and cons of that theme through that character. And so we have to plot it out. I'll plot out every chapter. I'll plot out which character is going to drive the chapter, what other guest characters are going to be in there, what are the main issues they're going to cover, what research I have to pull in for that issue. And so I go through and we develop a beginning, middle, and an end of a story. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't change once I actually start writing. And it doesn't mean I don't do more research once I start writing, but it gives me a framework to work from. And typically, once I had that first outline draft complete, and I'm satisfied with that, and that can take months just to do that. I'll write the first draft of the book. Now that, because I know what each chapter is about, that can go fairly quick. I can usually get the first chapter done in 6 to 8 weeks. After that, though, becomes the process of actually taking. But as Stephen King will say, first drafts always stink. So what I then have to do is take that stinky draft that's clumsy and the dots don't all connect yet, and I changed references from here to there. It has to go through a process of polishing and tightening and finishing. And oftentimes my books will take anywhere from 25 to 50 different versions of polishing a first draft before I release it, and before I finally publish it. So it's a process of being very thoughtful from the very beginning about what are the themes, what are the issues that I want to bring up in the world, what is it that I have to say about them, how do I understand all the facts related to those issues, and then how do I build that, how do I make it a human based experience by giving it to a character to own. And then by the time you get done with all of the writing and all of the polishing, that's each one of my books has won an award. And The Image, which is my latest, has just been awarded the Reader's House out of London, which is a literary magazine, has just given it the Editor's Choice for Literary Excellence. And I'm very proud of those kinds of awards. And I think that is a direct outcome of the intentional, methodical process that I do.
Congratulations, Mr. Guy. Congratulations indeed. Hoping for more and more award winning things to come. Your output is prolific. What is your core philosophy or non negotiable rule that governs your writing process across all projects?
It has to feel authentic. I don't want things that are forced, derivative, or phony feeling. It has to feel authentic. It has to feel real. And that means research into the real facts. And so I don't want to write anything that is not founded, rooted, integrated with a factual foundation. That's the one thing that's, I think, probably the most important. That no narrative is compelling for me unless it has the authenticity of truth. And that's not easy to do. There's a lot of opinions in the world. There's a lot of, people. You can have different views of what a fact means, but there has to be a factual foundation. That's probably the most important thing. And the second thing is, as I said, I want people to walk away from each and every book thinking about the issues that I've raised for some time afterwards, whether that might be a personal issue, an historical issue, a religious issue, a political issue, a technology issue, whatever those issues are. I want to write a story that you love to read. You're being entertained like crazy through the whole process. But at the end of the day, when you finish that last page, I want you to be thinking about, wow, that was cool. That felt really real. What does that mean for me?
Hmm. Indeed, Mr. Guy, indeed. And how do you consistently choose topics that are both personally compelling and have a broad commercial or cultural appeal?
Oh well, that's assuming I do I do consistently do that and successful at that. It's hard, and that's one of the reasons it takes so long. I'm looking for. I'm pretty well informed. I do a lot of reading. I stay current on a lot of issues. I have masters in economics. I've consulted for the government, so I have a pretty good idea of how the world works, and I'm constantly staying on top of latest events. But because my career and my entire career was based on what does that mean for the business? What does that event? Uh, what how will that event change how we do build our products, or how we sell, or how we're taxed, or how we operate? And so there's a part of me that's always looking at world events beyond just the event themselves into what does that mean for humanity? What does that mean? And so I think one of the main consistencies I have is based on a career of trying to translate world events into a call to action. Taking that and to say, well, we have to respond to this somehow in a positive way, that it might be a negative event, but we have to somehow turn this to our advantage. And I think there's a lot of my characters and a lot of my plots and a lot of my thinking that goes into the books that's taking these very real, intense experiences that we're all living through, we're all feeling the anxiety for. But I don't want to just dwell in that anxiety. I don't want my books to be dystopic from that perspective. I want them to be challenging. I want you to feel the tension and the stress, and that's what a good thriller does, is ask what can go wrong and help you feel the tension of it going wrong. But at the end of the day, we want to end in a positive, uplifting way. And that means looking at the world through the eyes of not just finding the faults, but finding the courage to stand up to them in a courageous and a unique and in a way that shows integrity. And I think people relate to that. We all want to have those characters that we can identify with. They can be flawed, they can make mistakes, they can fall, but they have to be able to get up again and be able to somehow solve the problem without becoming the as ugly as the monster in the story itself. And so we want to find characters that can do that. And I think that's important, that those characters go through very authentic challenges.
Authenticity indeed. And Mr. Guy, is there a unifying theme or central question that connects all your books, even they are span different
Yeah.
genres?
Well, for certainly for the series that deals with espionage and artificial intelligence, there's a within the series there's a sub theme that now the whole series is inspired by an artificial intelligence that's a true story of a spy program that escaped the NSA spy labs at Sandia and was never recaptured. So that's all true. It's based on a program that actually escaped a government lab and they couldn't find it. And I know that's true because I'm the one who figured out how it escaped and why they designed it that way. They were nice enough to send two FBI agents to my door. But so the theme is that we have artificial intelligence and other advanced tech that are getting out of our control during a time of history when we're seeing the collapsing of our geopolitical systems and safeties away from democracy towards autocracy. And there's another theme in there, which is all of this actually relates to prophecies in plain sight. But the unique thing about the story theme is that we don't deal with the prophecy from a heavily religious perspective. The actual outcome, we deal with it as an AI would think of prophecy. And so, from that perspective, a machine would conclude that prophecy is not a story of how a angry deity will come down to destroy humanity. It's a story, it's a warning of how humanity will destroy itself. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it in climate change. We're seeing it in wealth distributions toward the wealthy and away from the middle class. We're seeing it in our weapons of mass destruction. We're seeing it in turning AI into weapons. We see it into re-implementing our nuclear arsenals. So we're trying to weaponize space, and so we see all of these things that we're doing to ourselves that are leading us to a less stable place. And even the infamous doomsday clock, which is a clock created by scientists after the Manhattan Project. And every year they basically count it down to say, is humanity getting closer to destroying itself? And this year in January, they moved it closer than it's ever been before. And so the big theme in the book is that we're taking all of these things, our own politics, our own economics, our own technologies, and we're not using it to solve the problems of humanity. We're not solving hunger. We're not creating clean water. We're not cleaning up the environment. We're not creating good education and good jobs and good careers so that people don't have to live in poverty. We're not looking out for the next generation. We're being greedy and careless with our waste and our mountains of materialism. And so the theme in the books is really try to look at humanity from the perspective of there's a religious theme that says that God is going to come and destroy humanity. The book is trying to say we're actually doing that to ourselves.
Very well said, Mr. Guy. Truly, truly empowering answer. Let's talk about the routine and discipline. Walk us through a typical day in your writing life. Has a routine changed significantly from your first book to your most recent?
I think I'm more confident. I mean, when you first write your first book, there's the question of can I even do this at all? Right? Can I get to an end? And can I write a book that's good enough for that people will want to read? And is it worth, there's when you do your first book, there's a lot of self-doubt and self-worth issues and just confidence issues and working through how do I do this and how do I do that. By the time you get to your fourth and fifth book, you're starting to get more confident with the process, right? You're starting to realize, okay, I know how to get to getting a whole book done and getting it polished and getting it out the door and getting it published and getting it marketed and all that stuff. And the process changes to, well, gee, I had each of those four books won an award. I can't write a bad book now. Now it starts to become a little bit of self competition where I have to write something at least as good, if not better, than the last one I wrote. Because your audiences are always looking for you to up the game and looking for you to do better than you did. So it's now become a self competition of getting better and better and better and better at it, hopefully getting a little faster at it as well, although I haven't mastered that part yet, mainly because of all the research. But then the other part is okay, well, I've said something meaningful in these other books. Do I really have anything meaningful left to say? What is it that I don't want to write a book just to say I wrote a book. I want to write a book that has something meaningful to say that my readers actually have a meaningful response to. And so that really becomes the more challenge as you go through it. It moves from can I do this process at all to can I stay relevant and meaningful to my readers to continue to read. And that's a shift in mentality. That's a shift in spirituality. That's a lot more soul searching of yourself and examining your own heart and your own mind and trying to expand beyond your comfort zones to understand other aspects of philosophy, for example, and so or science. And so there's always an expanding of yourself that you have to do. You can't just rest on your laurels and say, I wrote a good book, therefore I'm done, I've arrived. It's always a process of trying to be better and have something meaningful to say.
Meaningful for sure. So, how do you protect your focus and creative energy in an age of constant digital distraction?
Yeah, well, fortunately, I'm an old guy, so I know what it was like to unplug. So before the days of cell phone, before the days of internet, before the days of computer, us old people had to figure out how to occupy ourselves and stay focused. And so oftentimes, like right now, I'm working on finishing a manuscript. I have a deadline to get it to the editor by September 15th. So I don't go on social media at all. I don't respond. I don't post. I go into this reclusive, turn off all of the other things that I need to turn off so I can focus. And then once I get done with the process and the manuscript is on its way, then I'll come back and I'll do a little bit of social media, or I'll come back and I'll do some posting, or I'll come back and I'll do some more research. But I don't spend a lot of time just wasting time on social media or on television or any other entertainment. I'm I could. There's a lot of people that my wife even tells me that I don't have to produce as many books as I do as fast as I do. But I wouldn't want to do it any other way. I want to stay productive. I want to stay meaningful. And so I stay focused. I don't spend a lot of time goofing off. Now there are times when every author has writer's block, right? There's times when the process just gets stuck. There's times when you're just physically exhausted and you can't be creative. During those times, I take naps. I just allow if my body's telling me it needs to rest, I let it rest. But if it's not resting, I'm trying to be productive. There's times when I have writer's blocks. That means that's an opportunity for me to go do more research, because it's amazing how going to learn something new can give you new ideas of how to solve the problem you're having. So even with times of being blocked and stumped, I can tend to use those in a productive way. And because I tend to write really late at night, sometimes till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, if my body wants to take a nap in the middle afternoon, I just let it. But once I'm done with my nap, I'm always more productive. So there is a discipline for sure. I don't just write just when I feel like it. I get up and this is my job every day. I'm either researching, I'm outlining, I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm polishing, I'm promoting, I'm going to book signing events. This is my full time job, and I take it seriously, like I did with my career. And again, because I'm not just trying to write a book to say I wrote a book, there's a part of me that feels like I have something to say to the world society that's important to say and important for them to hear. And so I have a responsibility. I feel that burden. I feel that responsibility to do my best job to say it succinctly, say it well, and make it count. That makes
And
sense?
make it count. Makes sense. Makes sense. Mister, makes sense. And tell us, what does your outlining process look like? Are you meticulous architect or more of an exploratory gardener?
Ooh, architect versus explorer. Oh boy. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm a little bit of both. I absolutely go explore things. I actually go try to research and find information about topics I know almost nothing about, because I'm interested and I sense that there's a story there, and I may not even know what that story is until I go explore. And so I have to go do a lot of exploration in my books. The Curse of Cortez took 12 years of exploration to trying to solve a real mystery. But once I had the information, I build a case. I try to say, okay, now it's my job to take all this information, and rather than doing a dump on the reader and letting the reader figure it out, I need to curate this information. I need to mold it. I need to turn it. I need to architect it into a story narrative, an argument, a theme that is compelling and convincing and entertaining. And so I think in order to look at some of these more complex issues, you have to have an open mind. You have to explore. You have to be willing to learn something yourself, even willing to change your own mind about something before you can go through the process of trying to help somebody else explore and discover and maybe change from that. And so, yeah, I think it takes a little bit of both.
Both, for sure. And how do you know when you've done enough research and it's time to start writing?
Oh, you found my Achilles heel. I never know. I never know. I, every time I finish a book, I discover some new piece of information. I thought, oh man, that's really cool. I wish I'd known that before I finished the book. Um, the hardest part for me is knowing when it's good enough and it's done, because there's always something else that I could learn, always something else I could tweak, always something else I wish I knew ahead of time I could fit in. That's the hardest part, is knowing when it's enough, because the story never ends. The story is ongoing. The story is happening in real time every single day, in the news and in history and in the library, and the things that you discover and the insights that we gather as we go through life. Those are the things that you want in your book, those aha moments, and those never stop. And so that's the hardest part, is figuring out when to do it. Dan Brown said once that the time, when you're done, when it's done, when you're editing the book and you can't find any more major changes that you would want to make. You can change a word or two here or there. You can change this dialogue line to say, oh, I can say that line better. But when you get to the point where there's no major changes, where the story fits and it's in the right sequence, and there's no missing dots, where I said something here but I didn't fulfill it there. Once you've reached that point, it's time to let go. And I know that in my head, but there's a part of me that says, this is my baby. I don't want to let it go. So yeah, there is a process, and it does take a while.
There is a process for sure. And Mr. Guy, what is your system of or for organizing research notes, ideas, and fragments so they are usable when they need them?
I have multiple file cabinets that are full, and I have on my desktop is hundreds and hundreds of documents, and they're all in. I have probably about 30 different folder topics. So the challenge, you get to a certain point where um, I wish I had an intern, because it's not just having the information at hand, it's remembering what you have, and finding the pieces that are relevant when you're at the part of the story where you need that information. And so it's a little challenging at times. I go back and forth between having you when I'm in the middle of writing a book. If you go into my office, you'll see everywhere around my office are stacks and stacks of papers. And one stack might be, that's the artificial intelligence stack, and another stack might be, that's the World Economic Forum global economic systems stack, or another stack might be, that's the CIA stack. And so I'll have stacks of information when I'm in the process of writing, because it's easier for me to go through the stack of information in the pages to find what I'm remembering than it is to go through online files and look for it. But ultimately, they all have to be stored online or in a file, and I keep everything. And it can be pretty voluminous. It can be pretty choking. As I said, I have one, two, three, four, five, six file cabinets full of research, and as I said, probably several hundred files on my desktop, on every topic. And I'm constantly researching more, saving new stuff on my desktop. It's exhaustive, but there's so much great information out. So it does take a while. And every once in a while, before I start each new book, I'll go through and I'll breeze through and I'll review the research I already have. And I'll try and organize it with highlights of what are the key points I want to highlight. And I'll bring those pieces to the top of the stack. But it's a constant moving the data around to make it more accessible when I need it. But it's a lot.
It's
Now,
a lot.
what I'd love
Mm.
to do is, at one day, I'm going to take the time, and it's a project in and of itself. Is I'm going to get an AI to go through and review all of my material, so that I can eventually, I'll get to the point where I can just ask the AI about its content, and it'll bring up the content from my research. I haven't gotten to that point yet, because it'll take time to really get that system set up. But that's what I want to do at some point, is get an AI assistant to basically be my research assistant.
Mr. Guy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well, Geography 101 in fourth season, and my Baby Podcast Law 101, and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in each first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Guy, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice before he wrote his first book, what would it be?
Younger self about writing. Ah, that's a good question too. You know, writing is a passion. You write not because it's something you have to do, it's because something you really want to do. I think if I would tell myself something younger, it would be teaching myself to write more, even if it's little tiny bits and pieces here and there, just to learn to love the process of expressing myself. And it's healthy. It helps with mental health. It helps stimulate creativity. If I had could tell myself something more, it'd be spending less time doing other things and more time writing.
Mr. Guy Morris, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. You can find my books at guymorrisbooks.com, and everyone is award winning. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. Thank you so much.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Guy Morris, because if you support him, for sure, more and more award winning things to come. So, Mr. Guy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. It's my pleasure.
Marty, people, see you soon.